Questions certainly have emerged today about the possible involvement of Iran in the attack against Israel. I think they probably started with that Wall Street Journal piece that quoted unnamed members of Hamas and Hezbollah as well as saying that Iran gave the go-ahead for the attack. So that started it. Not that there wasn't thought about Iran before that, but the fact that the Journal reported that definitively certainly had more people talking about it. Iran, however, has denied any involvement. There hasn't been further reporting on this yet, I don't believe, except for what we saw in the Journal. Let's bring Blake Berman in on this. Blake, of course, is our chief Washington correspondent and moderates The Hill, which is coming up on the top of the hour. All right, so that's kind of the backdrop where we were. I was talking to Leland about this as well. Everybody's, and to Danny Ayalon about whether this becomes more of a regional conflict. And then from the U.S. perspective, we know now, President Biden saying moments ago that there are 11 Americans who are confirmed dead. And I think it's also important to point out that there are a number, when we talk about hostages, that are unaccounted for. So that's the U.S. side of it, right?
Yeah, and just to go back, Connell, to that Wall Street Journal report, one of the questions, obviously, is how could the Wall Street Journal know about something that the Biden administration might not? And with the Anthony Blinken, the Secretary of State, basically not yet willing and ready to link Iran to Hamas and to what happened when everybody knows there's a link between Iran and Hamas. Here's now what a senior defense official is saying, that Iran is in the picture. Iran has provided support for years to Hamas and Hezbollah, but the administration doesn't have specifics that corroborate the Wall Street Journal reporting at this time. So still, Connell, the administration is not yet willing to go where the Wall Street Journal is willing to go. And I think the Wall Street Journal was fairly detailed and fairly clear in its reporting. And so it, again, leads to this question of why isn't the Biden administration willing to go at this point in time by directly linking Iran to what we saw inside Israel early Saturday morning.
I guess you're at a whole different level, and we're already at a very high level right now. And once you go there, you better be sure that where you're going is the place, because I guess you've been in foreign policy a long time, as many people inside the White House have, what the response would be. Now, I know, as I said, you'll be moderating The Hill as usual at the top of the hour. You guys have Senator Lindsey Graham on, and tell us about the show.
Yeah, so we have Senator Lindsey Graham on. I actually spoke to him moments ago, Connell, and it was very interesting. He brought up the idea of escalation and Iran and what that could look like. And Senator Graham essentially said that Iranian oil infrastructure should be in play if there is an escalation from Hamas. As we know, Hamas is talking about potentially executing hostages and doing so and broadcasting it out. If it were ever to get to that point, Connell, of course, of going down the line of escalating with Iran and with the oil fields, the oil infrastructure, the refineries, et cetera, that would bring this to a whole new level. But at least now one United States senator is raising that possibility, Senator Lindsey Graham, and you will hear more of what he has to say coming up here on The Hill in about 23 minutes.
Yep. Okay. Well, we'll see then. Obviously, that's very interesting. Blake, as always, thank you. We'll see Blake at the top of the hour.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.